Hello and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen.
You may have seen the news that quote unquote extreme misogyny is to be treated as terrorism by the Labour government under the orders of new Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. And further to that, Labour MP Jess Phillips has been speaking to LBC about what the Labour Party intend to do and why. Because if there's one thing that wayward young males need to turn into strong, moral, decent masculine men, it's bolshy, aggressive and woke female MPs that have all the tact of an overzealous bossy HR lady. I'm sure that's going to inspire lost young men to change. But anyway, as you may well predict, this is typical Labour Party policy. Just like Keir Starmer and the riots, they're attacking the immediate cause without bothering to look into the actual fundamental issues going on behind the scenes.
The National Police Chiefs Council concerns there about the growing rise in sort of misogynistic attitudes amongst young men, largely because of online content that they're seeing. And this isn't, let me just be completely clear, about criminalising people who are showing signs of an ideology. It is about preventing that ideology.
So it's safe to say they're going to criminalise men who have an anti-feminist ideology then?
And I don't like to give any particular person any kudos, but the likes of this sort of online misogynistic trends that we have seen in the last 9 years.
She means people like Andrew Tate.
Are completely and utterly ignored by that. And so this is looking for the gaps and ensuring that we're doing everything to try and counter extremism before it turns to terrorism.
Terrorism is the use of violence for political aims to try and change the sway of a political or religious body. Now, of course, I agree that the physical and sexual abuse of women is a terrible thing that needs to be worked on, but who is doing that for political reasons? This is just hyperbole. Secondly, when she's saying all of this, do you think she's talking about grooming gangs or, the Muslim man recently who walked free from jail after beating his daughter with an iron bar because he thought she went out with a boy? I don't know about you, but my spidey senses are tingling a bit here, and I'm thinking that the Labour Party may be using the safety of women and girls as a cover to crack down on anybody who has anti-left-wing ideas. After all, the problem here is who decides what's misogynistic and what is not, who decides what's extreme and what is not. It looks like it's going to be bolshy left-wing Labour MPs, and my experience with them is that anything to the right of Jeremy Corbyn's social views are seen as hateful and problematic.
Is the line where we fear an attitude or an opinion is going to stray into a crime or an act of violence? Is that the line we have to draw?
Well, you just use the exact same test you would with far-right extremism and Islamism, wouldn't you? The same test would have to apply. And, the idea that it's, people can hold their views about women that they, all they like. And believe me, they let me know them all the time. I've had some choice emails just today, but it's not okay anymore to ignore the massive growing threat caused by online hatred towards women.
Now, I apologise for subjecting you to such a long clip of waffle there, but I thought it was important to exhibit the irony. She's talking here about ignoring violence towards women and girls, while totally ignoring the question the guy asked. The question was, where are you going to draw the line? And the answer was, I guess it will be like far-right extremism and Islamic terrorism. So that would be like making threats to women then, which is already illegal. And then she waffles on for the best part of a minute about how she gets horrible emails, and I'm sorry to hear she gets nasty emails, but that's not answering the question. She then just ends with the same emotional rhetoric the interview started with.
Well, unfortunately, in cases of people, thankfully, it is relatively rare, notwithstanding the recent outbreaks that we have seen. When extremist misogyny then goes to harming women, it would be really good to see, the response of our nation massively improving, which is why the government have made it a complete mission, cross-government mission, to halve the incidences of violence against women and girls. But we cannot just do it in a domestic space. We have to look at why these attitudes are growing and why specifically it seems that they are growing amongst the young.
Now, there was a lot of waffle again there, but she ended on a very important question, and that is, why are young males turning to figures like Andrew Tate? Well, I'd like to have a crack at that with
We're good with that. I want to go back and have a look at this. From the Australian Human Rights Commission, currently tabled before Federal Parliament, and the reforms are anticipated to go through conference. And where I'm heading today, position papers. Now, I haven't checked how many people were in the extensive consultation yet, but the first free and equal position paper, a reform agenda for federal discrimination laws, makes 38 recommendations across 4 major reform areas. 1. Building a preventative culture. Yes, that's where we're headed. Modernising the regulatory framework, enhancing access to justice, and improving the practical operations of the law. The second position paper, A Human Rights Act for Australia, proposes a model for a Human Rights Act and how it could function and what it could do. Anyway, I'm just looking at 1 to 4 today. Da, 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 da. Contents. So discrimination law reform on page 73. 5, first 2 pages of decoration. So the Commission recommends that the Australian Government modernises federal discrimination laws to increase their effectiveness and shift their focus from a reactive model that responds to discriminatory treatment to a proactive model that seeks to prevent discriminatory treatment in the first place. The Commission recommends a staged approach. So it's in 2 columns, which makes it hard for me to just scroll and read. The most recent attempts to reform these laws was the process that was commenced to consolidate all discrimination laws into one cohesive framework conducted under began the Australian Human Rights Framework in 2011 to 2012. This process stalled in 2012 and was abandoned following a change of government in September 2013. There remains under consideration a 2023 proposed legislation to protect against religious discrimination. Okay. The objectives of the Commission is to reform federal discrimination laws. 4 pillars: intersectionality, preventative, and predictable. Oh, I thought I'd avoided the infographics. Anyway, a positive duty to eliminate discrimination should be introduced across all federal discrimination laws. Education and outreach on the positive duty must be developed to provide clear and accessible guidance on the duty. The positive duty should be staged by providing a 12-month introduction period before it comes into legal effect. There should be a focus on co-regulatory functions in the introductory phase of the positive duty in addition to enforcement mechanisms. I have no idea what positive duty is now. I have to go and find out what that's all about. Oh, surprise, surprise. It's an Australian Human Rights Commission's thing. Under the Sex Discrimination Act, organisations and businesses now have a positive duty to eliminate as far as possible the following unlawful behaviour from occurring. So discrimination, sexual harassment, sex-based harassment, conduct creating workplace and employment that is hostile on the grounds of sex, related acts of victimisation. The new position duty was introduced in December 2022. It imposes a legal obligation on organisations and businesses to take proactive and meaningful action to prevent relevant unlawful conduct from occurring in the workplace in connection to work. Taking preventative action will help create safe, respectful, and inclusive workplaces. I think I need to look closer into that. Steps to meet positive duty. So, positive duty requires organisations, to take reasonable and proportionate measures to eliminate the following behaviours as far as possible. Discrimination on the grounds of sex in the work context. Well, if they're going to amend this, which they say they are in our previous document we were just looking at, all you got to do is add a comma after sex, and you can add LGBTQI WTF plus whatever else they want to add in the future. What else? Oh, yeah, the gender thing, the non-binary thing, Islamophobia. That's pretty trendy at the moment, isn't it? And then you go down and you do that with every sentence. There's a thought. Anyway, it's only 6 pages. Let's have a look at a bit more. The Australian Human Rights Commission has published a range of resources, including guidelines for complying with the positive duty, to assist organisations and businesses to understand their obligations and what steps they need to take to satisfy the positive duty. Think about your people and acknowledge intersectionality. Oh, yep, infographics. Leadership. Senior leaders understand their obligations under the Sex Discrimination Act. Da 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 da. Standard 2, culture. Organisations and businesses foster a culture that is safe, respectful, and inclusive and values diversity and gender equality. Is there attention paid to gender balance when recruiting or promoting people? So, not skills, don't worry about that. Standard 3, knowledge. Is this information included in staff inductions and training? Standard 4, risk management. And this is all coming from the UN. Anyway, standard 5, support. What support services outside the organisation or business can workers access? Oh, there's plenty of non-for-profits out there, I'm sure. Standard 6, reporting and response. If workers experience or witness relevant unlawful conduct, how can they report it? Are there both formal and informal operations for reporting? Minimising harm and victimisation. 7, monitoring, evaluation and transparency. Organisations and businesses use the data they collect to regularly assess and improve the work culture, and also obtain statistics and data for the Australian Human Rights Commission. Anyway, that's the end. Okay, back to this thing that's before Parliament right now. So, ensuring there are remedies for those subject to discrimination is fundamental. Complaints mechanisms are therefore of critical importance. Positive duties are an emerging feature of discrimination laws in Australia and overseas, reflecting a shift to a preventative focus that is proactive in dealing with discrimination and avoiding harm. Yep, and so here we are. It's already set up on a federal level that you can just add things like sex, comma, and add whatever else you want. What are they? Protected attributes. So the Commission has new powers to investigate and enforce compliance within the positive duty. These powers will commence on the 12th of December 2023. It is an important first step towards reorientating the way federal discrimination law as a whole operates, with its focus on proactively preventing discrimination from occurring. The Australian Human Rights Commission also considers that such a change should be accompanied by a broader range of co-regulatory powers and functions. This would enable the Commission to build confidence in measures to prevent discrimination from occurring in the first place, while also ensuring that organisations that permit serious or persistent acts of discrimination are held to account. Out of time, bye.